Hey gang, this is John Casale here with Triple Crown Baseball. We're interviewing one of our top prospect scouts here, Sean Murphy. So appreciate you taking the time to do this, Sean.
No problem. Glad to be here.
Can you tell me a little bit from your standpoint as far as you playing the game when you started all the way, to the point where professionally and how you got into scouting?
Well, I've been playing pretty much as long as I could remember. I grew up, my father was a scout, still is today, over 50 years. So, I grew up in minor league stadiums and at college ballparks and, have been around the environment of, player evaluation, scouting, as long as I can remember. And that sort of carried over. He was a college coach along with my uncle, who was a high school coach as well. So sort of the family business.
Gotcha. And you, as far as playing career, collegiately, and then played any professional minor league, and then what sucked you into the scouting world?
So I started out junior college, Indian Hills Community College, Centerville, Iowa. Played in the Junior College World Series in 1992. Played in the NAIA World Series in 1994 with St. Ambrose University, also out of Iowa. And then I was drafted by the Cleveland Indians in 1994 and had a 10-year minor league career. And in the off season, and did some associate scouting, sort of learning the craft that I had grown up in, how to do it as a professional. Really realized that a lot of us as players, we start learning how to scout during those careers, analyzing pitchers and relievers who we're going to see the next day, what guys are doing as far as pitches and how they're getting you out and those sort of things. You learn these skills as a player to be able to survive for 10 years and improve. So those skills, it's a cumulative effort as far as scouting and evaluating go. But I've attended scout school, worked part-time as an associate scout with Tampa Bay, off and on for a few years. I do evaluations for the program here and facility here that I work in Iowa. Working with high school kids, college kids, some low-level professional guys, hitting and infielding, things like that.
Great. Well, I know our top prospect program was a new program, a pilot program for us this year, and obviously we partnered with Don Reynolds, his baseball group there, and so when he gave you the call and asked you if you were interested, how did it go as far as did it meet your expectations? What did you expect, and how did things how'd you think it shook out from your experience?
Well, I think it really gave not only me but the other professional scouts that worked through the Reynolds Baseball Group the opportunity to practice our craft, pass along some of the things that we've learned, some of the things that as scouts that we learn how to do things by instinct, by what we see on the field, not so much using technology as a measuring stick, which is a large part of the process today, but our intuitive skills, things that we have, gained and learned over the years through being directly involved with this. So it was an opportunity to sort of, use those skills and put them on display and, pass along some of the things that we've learned, especially with the instructional part of the part of the process. There's a lot of things that, as scouts that we see, kids doing that we evaluate and, that are very simple things, baseball things that don't necessarily get passed on these days. So the opportunity to, be a quote unquote baseball person and pass on the things that I've learned has, it's always a positive opportunity for me.
Gotcha. So as far as expectations, did you have any coming into it? And
well, I knew if Don and some of the other guys were involved, that it was going to be a top-notch program, everything done professionally, in the way that I grew up around it. So All of those expectations, that it definitely lived up to it. It's an opportunity for me as well to grow, because a lot of the guys have a lot more experience than I do, a lot more experience than, a lot of professional scouts out there do. So, I tell kids when I'm working with them, it's, you have two opportunities, an opportunity to learn and an opportunity to teach. So it's been both of those things for me. So, I'm just really happy to be here.
Great. Well, you kind of touched on it real quickly. You were talking about the other tools and the things that are measured. Aside from the normal measurable tools, what are some of the things as a scout that you look for while you are scouting players?
Well, we look for the intangibles, the things that, a radar gun, or some sort of tracking device can't really give you. Those are measurement tools. You're putting yourself on a scale, and there's numbers that go with it, and those numbers are absolute. The intangible things that we look for are the things that we look for currently, where a player is now, and what we see projectable in the future. So those things aren't always as cut and dry. And, we've all been wrong. We will all be wrong again. But we give ourselves the best opportunity based on that experience and doing this sort of evaluation, seeing trends, seeing consistencies in players, whether it be, their actions, their athleticism, things like speed, arm strength. A lot of those things inherently you can't teach. Now you can get better at them, and that's technology helps us understand how we can make small improvements. But on the baseball field, it's a very specific skill set, accumulation of a very specific skill set. And, some kids are just born with it, and some kids can develop it. So we have to be able to identify and project both of those sets of kids. And it's not always the way that you think it's going to be. There's no cut and dried way to do it. Like I said, there's a lot of right and wrong that goes into this. We try to be right more than we're wrong.
Right. With this real heavy push for the use of technology and data collection, and the game is obviously changed so much in the last several years. What do you think are the what has been noticeably the big changes that you have seen, and with all this use of technology, what are the things that you think that get missed? Is there any particular couple items or anything that is missed with the heavy reliance upon using technology?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's inherent in, how your question started, that, the game has changed. I think that's an assumption that people make because of the technology, because of the opportunity to do all of these things and put value, numbers, and statistics to all of these things that in the past weren't possible. Well, the game hasn't changed. How people approach the game has changed. The game of baseball is still the game of baseball. It's played in a very specific manner, especially at the professional level. And, it's up to us to be able to marry these two sides together, the side of the technology, and what that offers, and the side of the professional evaluator. And there tends to be a little bit of conflict and misunderstanding on both sides. So I think it's inherent in us as evaluators, as professionals, to be able to take the two parts of those and get a little bit from here and a little bit from there, learn from, the other side or the newer way of doing things, and vice versa. When that happens, then it's the players that benefit. But the game hasn't changed. Just how people go about understanding the game has changed. The technology has allowed a lot more people to understand what's going on and put numbers and values to it that are, for the layperson, a little bit easier to digest and follow along with. It's a great thing for the fans. Whether or not it's a great thing for development of players, that's a generational question. We'll have to see how that pans out. People that are practitioners of, heavy technology, they want that answer to be yes, because that's what they do. But like I said, as evaluators, we have to take that into consideration and see what's going to play out, over the long term. Some of these things have only been around for a few years. And I don't think that's, that's definitely an accurate assessment of how good or bad one thing, could be to players in the future, but we'll just have to see what happens.
Interesting. And we are touching on the technology aspect of it. Obviously, working our events, and you and I talking, and with the group of scouts that we have, the big push is social media, right? And what are your thoughts on the use of social media?
Just like anything else, it's a tool, and how that tool is utilized, how it's viewed, how a player, a parent, a coach, a recruiter, anyone approaches it makes it inherently something that's going to be good or bad. Now, for the players, it can be extremely beneficial, especially, kids that are out there, they're trying to, get a college coach to see who they are, to recognize them. They can put plays. So for the players, it gives them the opportunity to promote themselves, put different plays out there, follow a college coach or a recruiter, keep track of events, and especially as these guys progress to the college level, it gives them a sense of, what's the word I'm looking for? It gives them a sense of presence online. So when these guys do get to college, if they have they've built up a big following, right? So with the new NIL rules, they definitely have an opportunity to do things that haven't been done in the past. Now, on the other side of it, players are still young men at various levels, even in the college levels. And young men tend to be wild and impulsive and do things that aren't necessarily in their best interest. And a lot of times that ends up on social media. So as good as it can be, there are downsides to it. A player just has to have a plan, has to be responsible. And, and that falls into, the parent's role as well. If your son's going to be on there, if he's serious about playing, at the next level, college, high school, and has professional aspirations, we've seen in the past that, what happens online, it doesn't go away. Somebody's watching, somebody's going to see it, somebody's going to find it. And, if it's positive, then it's awesome for the player. If it's negative, it can be a detriment to those dreams, those plans, and all of that hard work. As a tool for recruiting, I think it's great for college, for college recruiters and evaluators. They can see what these guys are doing at their tournaments. The organizations, national and regional organizations, are great about, featuring different players, the things that they do, their performances, and to see that engagement with the parents, through the events that I've been to this summer has just been amazing. Met a lot of parents, had a lot of great conversations, online through Twitter messages, Facebook, and in person, to meet some of these people in person, has really been a positive thing for me, to see the work that we do sort of in action, have direct response with these people, and to see how it affects the player. So players like to see their name out there. A lot of these kids are really young, and they haven't, they have a little bit of success, and they might think that they're in the middle of nowhere in South Carolina or wherever, and boom, an RBI hit, and somebody posted up on Twitter, and oh wow, look at that. It's a motivating factor, for them in a positive way.
Yeah, it's we were laughing the other day that you see all the great plays on everybody's, you don't see the strikeouts, you don't see anything but all the good stuff. So but it's definitely changed the way people look at sensationalizing. Everybody's got a little bit more fame now with Twitter and Instagram and all. So but with the top prospect camp and the tournament coming up, what do you hope to communicate to the player and the teams that you're going to be working with? Obviously, you're going to be coaching, managing one of the teams. We've got the team camp that's going to be going on, where you'll be access to all of the kids. But in general, you're going to be working with 13 young men and coaching them. So what's the message there, and what are you hoping to get out of that? And
so the first thing for me, no matter when I step on the field, it's this has to be fun for these guys. They get so much baseball, so much activity, so much input. that it has to be a learning environment, sure, but they have to enjoy themselves. They have to learn that there's joy to be had in the process. It's not all like we were talking about earlier. It's not all, 2-out RBI hits in a walk-off, tournament game. There's a lot of hard work that goes into this. And that work has to be fun, right? It has to be a good, positive environment that kids can enjoy being around. They can learn a lot from, so my job as an evaluator is to see how the work that we do affects these kids, but it's also, as a teacher and instructor, to be able to pass on some of this knowledge that I have, that I've learned over the years, and, the things that I see as important to development of this age. I have to pass that on and instill that in them, that these are the important things. What you may see or hear online or from your friends, aren't always necessarily the right things to do. There's, like I said, we're a bunch of, traditional baseball people, that have grown up and lived this whole experience most of our lives. So there are a lot of things that, that we find important that we want to pass on and instill in the younger generation: how to play the game, how to carry yourself, as a professional, but not even as a drafted or paid professional, but as a professional that's representing the game. And that can happen at any age, from 13 to 43, whatever you're doing, that you carry yourself and you behave and act with respect to the game, to yourself, your team, your organization, family, community, all of those things. Like, we have to build good young men first before we build big leaguers.
Nice. Obviously, all these athletes have parents. So what's the advice from you to the parents of these baseball players, or just any parent that's participating, has a child participating in sports?
The biggest thing that I see is unrealistic expectations. And those come from all sorts of places. Your son or daughter that's involved in amateur sports needs to get positive feedback, have positive experiences. So sport isn't just for scholarships and for all of those glittering generality things that we see online. It's, again, to teach and develop good people, to learn how to be a good teammate, to learn these life lessons through the opportunity of sports. And I think that gets lost in the idea that there's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of opportunity involved, on both sides of it. The parents see it as potential for their kids, and, they want them to chase that dream and be happy doing it and, getting to that end goal. But for the vast majority, that doesn't happen. So to have realistic goals, to set education first, to set, developing into, like I said, a good person, a good teammate, to learn these life lessons you can take with you, has to be at the top of the list for parents. Because otherwise you're just going to burn your kid out, and eventually they're just going to go, nah, I'm done with this. I don't want to do it anymore. It's not fun. It's too much of a grind. When there's little feedback, then the kids get to a point where, they need more reward than this is offering, and they find it in other ways. So, let your kid have fun. Make sure they're learning. Make sure they're surrounded by good people.
Great. As we discussed earlier, the program, the Top Prospect program, first year, what did you see in the program that really, if there is anything that differentiates it from the other organizations that are doing similar things and running similar type events?
Well, and not to toot my own horn, but you have professional scouts, seasoned professional evaluators, that are independent from the organization, that are evaluating these players. They have no connection to the organization, to the parents, to the teams, to anybody. They're out there looking and identifying talent, in a very specific way that's specific to the age group, but still in a professional manner. Writing professional reports, giving honest and realistic assessments of kids and their talents at this point. and hopefully accurate projections of where they could end up, where they might end up, and what their future may look like, with a lot of hard work, some luck, and dedication to what we're talking about. There are a lot of good organizations out there. They do not handle their evaluations and their scouting with professionals. They train them to do things, and they write great tweets and social media posts and promote the players, but it's usually the top 5 or 6% of those guys that are featured, and there's a whole lot of guys that are missed. That a lot of that doesn't really happen when you have professional evaluators who are looking for talent and skills, and not a face to promote, not a face of the organization or the next draft pick or the next this or the next that. We try to have a very cold, calculated, professional approach to doing this. So I think it's good for the organization, because of the level of continuity, that it will bring to it over the years. And it's good for the players that they're going to get a realistic assessment of where they're at, what they should be doing, and what they can do to keep progressing.
I always say, it's important to have connections and know people through the course of this program this year. Have you had parents, or have you had players that you wrote a report on, that you've maintained some kind of connection with throughout the summer?
Yes, absolutely. Like I said, I get messages and meet people in the the lobby of the hotel, or just standing in line at the concession stand. Hey, how you doing? What are you doing here? Where's your kid play? What organization? That sort of thing. Or people will come up to us and ask us, who are you here looking for? What age group? They have questions. They want to learn about this. They're interested in it. Some for the promotion of their own kid, which is totally fine, and some are just interested because they're baseball fans. So either one of those things I think is great to me, just to have that have that ability to communicate on that level. It doesn't really happen when you're working in in a Major League Baseball capacity as a scout. You're really isolated. People definitely don't feel comfortable coming up to you and asking some of these questions. And some of the scouts don't really feel comfortable fielding these questions either when they're at a pro or a college game or whatever. So it gives parents sort of an insight into the process. And there's a lot to be learned by just coming up and talking to us, or us engaging, with the parents, learning about the kids, learning about what they do outside of baseball. And that's been really eye-opening for me as a way to get to know these kids, and it affects how I write reports. Does this kid play other sports? Is he involved in, what activities and, and that sort of thing? Does he have any brothers? What sports do his brothers play? Oh, well, his brother's 6'8". Like, oh, okay. Well, I'm going to write that down in my report. That's, those things are good to know. It gives us an idea of, back to those intangibles, things that we can look at and how this particular player might develop over the years.
Great. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I don't know if you have any other parting shots, but we're excited about next week, getting all the scouts on the field for the camp and the tournament, and we're going to provide an opportunity for the players and parents to ask questions directly next week. I think next Thursday night or Friday night, we'll have yourself and the other scouts, and actually we just announced that Coach Hale from University of Arizona is going to be our headliner, and is going to join us and visit with the players and the parents also. So I want to say thanks for taking the time. I know you're busy, and look forward to seeing you next week, and stay healthy, safe travels.
Sounds good. Thank you.